The story begins with a baby awakening in a room that is completely unfamiliar to him. As he opens his eyes, he gradually notices a woman leaning over him, watching him closely. At first, he believes she is his mother, but he soon discards that thought when he realizes the woman is far too young to be her. Confused, he lowers his gaze and looks at his own hands, becoming completely shocked when he realizes that he now has the body of a baby. The situation becomes even stranger when he checks his status and discovers that all of his stats have returned to level 1. On top of that, he does not even have a registered name. Suddenly, a tall man wearing imposing armor enters the room. The woman addresses him with deep respect, calling him the king, as he approaches to take a closer look at the baby. Upon seeing the man, the boy begins to wonder whether he might be some kind of emperor or ruler of that land. Shortly afterward, the baby is taken to a priest to participate in a naming ceremony. During the ritual, he is given the name Noah and is officially declared the first imperial prince. When Noah quickly checks his status and sees that the title Imperial Prince has been added to the list, he understands that he is truly the direct son of the emperor of that nation. As soon as the ceremony ends, the emperor asks the priest about Noah's magical affinity. The priest replies that his affinity is water, and that the territory assigned to him will be Almeria, a region where many members of the Water Clan reside. Upon hearing this, the emperor appears somewhat relieved and, setting the matter aside, asks the priest to reveal Noah's full statistics. When this happens, everyone present in the room is left completely stunned. All of Noah's stats are already fully maxed, and his water affinity has reached SS rank. Despite having been born only a few hours earlier, possessing such extraordinary numbers indicates that he has already undergone an awakening. An awakening at such an early age is something never seen before. For that reason, everyone concludes that they are witnessing the birth of an extraordinary talent. At that moment, Noah understands that he has been given a new life and has reincarnated as a noble. The empire in which he now lives is known as the Mere Empire, a powerful nation of warriors situated among a chain of rugged mountains. Its capital lies on a vast plain, and the empire is currently enjoying a golden age, in which prosperity breeds even more wealth, allowing a rich and vibrant culture to flourish. The emperor of this land is the father of more than 10 children, all of whom are known as imperial princes. These princes are widely respected by the people, and are considered the most prestigious nobles in the entire empire. 6 years after Noah's reincarnation, he arrives at an important conclusion regarding his abilities. To others, his statistics seem to indicate absurd individual performance, but in reality, those values are high because they are being strengthened by his subordinates. For example, his water affinity at Rankus comes entirely from Almeria, the territory granted to him at birth, while many of his other attribute boosts come from the people who serve him. In other words, Noah becomes stronger the more subordinates he has. Moreover, he begins to suspect that his level may not have a maximum limit and could continue to grow indefinitely. After the maids finish dressing him, they accompany him downstairs. They then excuse themselves and begin chatting among themselves, all acknowledging how unusual he is. Normally, children his age would be mischievous and constantly causing trouble. But Noah is different. Calm, composed, and surprisingly mature for someone so young. Evely, the beautiful attendant specializing in hospitality, approaches Noah while he is having lunch and informs him that both the Crown Prince and the Fourth Prince have arrived to visit him. She adds that they said he could finish his meal before meeting them. However, Noah knows exactly who the Crown Prince is and understands that he cannot afford to keep them waiting. He immediately asks the maids to take him to them. Noah then meets his older brothers, Albert, the Crown Prince, and Henrique, the Fourth Prince. After exchanging formal greetings, Albert tells Noah that he has come to give him a present. At that moment, a clearly frightened servant enters the room carrying a sword sheath. A dark, menacing aura slowly begins to spread, making the air heavy and oppressive. As soon as the object is placed on the floor, Albert orders the servant to open it. The instant this happens, Noah feels a chill run down his spine as he begins to hear the screams of soldiers begging Albert to spare their lives. The voices sound desperate and filled with terror, and Noah immediately realizes that this is not an illusion. Albert then asks Noah to pick up the sword. although the protagonist does not want to do so. He understands that this is a gift from the Crown Prince, and refusing is not an option. Noah carefully grasps the sword, and although it feels heavy at first, he soon manages to adjust and find its balance. Afterward, Albert explains that the sword is called Leviathan, a water element blade, considered the most powerful element in the entire empire. Around 120 people died trying to master it. Henrique notices that Noah seems a bit tense upon hearing this and tells him not to worry. He explains that anyone who is not destined to wield the sword is killed by its curse the very moment they try to lift it. The fact that Noah was able to hold it without anything happening proves that, at least to some extent, he is worthy of it. Albert then lightly pats Noah on the back and leaves the room, saying that this was a valuable demonstration. Once Albert is gone, Noah can barely believe what just happened. That bastard had simply asked him to test something that could have killed him without any effort. Even so, Noah decides to keep those thoughts to himself, knowing that if he were to say something like that out loud, he would probably lose his life on the spot. As the princes walk away, Henrique asks Albert whether it was truly the best decision to leave Leviathan in Noah's hands, especially considering how costly that sword had been. Albert replies that the weapon would be far better off with someone as exceptional as Noah. Moreover, he adds that precisely because he himself is not that brilliant, he needed to experience the sensation of being wounded by his own pet. Later that night, Noah notices that his maid, Zoe, is acting strangely restless. Not understanding the reason, he asks what is going on, but Zoe tries to avoid the subject, saying she does not want to trouble him with personal problems and asking him not to worry. However, Noah insists. After hesitating for a moment, she finally speaks honestly and reveals that she would like to request some time off, as her hometown was recently struck by a flood. The farm where she grew up was completely destroyed by the water, and that land was her mother's only source of income. Desperate, Zoe confesses that she even considered working in a brothel, since she had been told she could be sold for a high price for having served an imperial prince. Noah reacts immediately, stating that he would never allow something like that to happen. Instead, he offers to employ Zoe's mother at the mansion as the person in charge of opening the gates, promising to pay her a generous salary. He also makes it clear that the pay for this position would be far higher than what is normally offered. In addition, Noah mentions that there is an empty house near the mansion where Zoe and her mother could live together. Upon hearing this, Zoe cannot hold back her tears. She begins to cry and repeatedly thanks Noah for his kindness and generosity. Deep down, however, the protagonist knows that he is not acting purely out of altruism. Having a former maid working in a brothel would stain the name of the third imperial prince. As his servant, Zoe belongs to his household and will serve him for life. After this unexpected gesture, Noah is certain that such loyalty will never betray him. After that, he summons Dylan, the butler, and explains that Zoe's hometown was devastated by a flood. Given the situation, he orders Dylan to go there and buy as much land as possible in Tao. Noah knows that, sooner or later, bandits will appear to take advantage of people during a time of weakness and chaos. He wants to secure ownership of that land before that happens and before the situation worsens even further. Dylan is surprised by the order. Despite being so young, Noah shows an impressive ability to analyze a complex situation with precision and care. In truth, Noah has lived through something similar in his previous life. But of course he cannot reveal that to anyone and chooses to remain silent. Dylan admits that the idea is very good, but raises an important issue. Where will the money to buy so much land come from? He explains that acquiring an area of that size would cost no less than several 100,000 reals, the currency used in the empire. Noah realizes that he truly had not thought that far ahead. After reflecting for a moment, he concludes that the solution will be to sell the lands he owns south of the capital. Dylan asks whether this is wise, since those lands were a personal gift from the king himself, and selling them without authorization could be considered a serious crime. However, Noah tells him not to worry about possible punishment or the king's anger, as he will personally bear all the consequences of that decision. He explains that being a noble means making sacrifices to make other people's lives safer and more dignified. Dylan understands the weight of those words and thanks Noah deeply for making such a decision, especially because he shares the same hometown as Zoe, which makes his gratitude even more sincere. The next day, Noah has already converted his assets into money and prepares to buy as much land as possible as quickly as he can. He is ready to go inspect it personally, but then receives an unexpected visit from his brother Henrique. Henrique notices that Noah is carrying the sword Leviathan and immediately asks why. Noah explains that since the last time, he has not felt any strange influence coming from the sword, but Henrique reveals that they intend to test him while they are in Doso. Setting that aside, Henrique explains that Leviathan has a will of its own and only obeys the one it recognizes as its true master. Noah quickly understands that he will need to earn that recognition somehow. Leviathan is like a ferocious beast that, for now, needs someone strong enough to dominate it. Henrique warns him not to use it unnecessarily, because if the timing is wrong, the sword could end up killing him. After delivering the warning, Henrique turns around and leaves. Shortly afterward, they arrive in Doso and are met with a completely transformed landscape. The flood was so devastating that the region now looks like a ruined wasteland. It is believed that many houses in the area also lost their property records during the flood, which means that the purchase of land will have to be based on official government archives. Dylan and the others are amazed to realize that a child, decades younger than them, was able to deduce all of this simply by observing the situation. Noah calmly explains that it is just basic logic. Next, Noah and Zoe begin inspecting the land together, until they notice that food is being distributed to a group of villagers by imperial suppliers. Noah takes a container of food and quickly notices that it smells bad and tastes like something on the verge of rotting. One of the villagers hears his comment and says that, in truth, they cannot complain, since it is already a blessing to be receiving that amount of food. The protagonist cannot believe that the Empire is serving such low-quality food to its people in the middle of a disaster. At that moment, the local government official, Lord Gary, arrives at the site to conduct an official inspection. Gary knows perfectly well that the food being distributed is terrible, but he does not care, since he is not the one who will be eating it. Noah, however, can no longer tolerate the situation. Witnessing this, Noah confronts Garkt directly and accuses him of embezzling the funds meant for food rations. He states that instead of providing proper meals, Garkt was saving money and serving garbage to the villagers. Garkt firmly denies it at first, but soon admits, without any remorse, that those at the top of the hierarchy deserve to eat first. He and his men then begin to mock Noah, openly laughing at him. Faced with this attitude, Noah is overcome by a wave of rage. In a fit of anger, he warns Garkt about the consequences of his crimes. Garkt, however, dismisses his words, treating him as nothing more than a child. In response, he draws his sword and prepares to attack Noah. At that exact moment, the sword Leviathan flies out of its sheath on its own and begins floating beside Noah. The blade starts testing him, pouring an enormous amount of power into his body to determine whether he is worthy. Part of Noah's body begins to darken, as if it is about to be consumed by the sword's curse, just when it seems he will not endure it. The protagonist feels an explosion of adrenaline and sheer willpower. Leviathan recognizes that Noah can withstand its power, and after a brief confrontation, the sword finally submits completely to him. Furious, Garkt charges in to kill Noah, but he cannot even strike first. Noah uses Leviathan and decapitates Garkt without giving him any chance to react. Seeing their leader killed right before their eyes, the henchmen also prepare to attack. To intimidate them, Noah strikes the ground with Leviathan. The impact creates a gigantic crater, so deep that its bottom cannot even be seen. Noah himself is shocked by the sword's overwhelming power. Shortly afterward, Rowan, the captain of the knights assigned to Doso, arrives at the scene and is stunned by what he sees. Upon recognizing Noah as the first imperial prince, he immediately kneels. The others present are confused until Rowan announces Noah's true identity, causing everyone to bow down in fear and respect. Noah then explains how Garkt and his men were exploiting the villagers, which is why Garkt was executed. He orders Rowan to ensure that all remaining corrupt officials receive appropriate punishment. In addition, Noah commands that the distribution of food be properly reorganized. so that the people of Doso can finally eat with dignity. Overjoyed, the villagers thank Noah for saving them. Meanwhile, Albert receives a report informing him that Noah has successfully mastered the sword Leviathan. Upon reading it, he smiles with satisfaction, realizing that Noah may be far more useful than he had imagined. Later, the protagonist meets with his father, expecting to be punished for having sold the lands that were granted to him. To his surprise, the emperor simply thanks him, explaining that Noah's actions prevented bandits from taking advantage of the situation caused by the flood. The emperor is also pleased to learn that Noah managed to control Leviathan. When they check his statistics once again, Noah's water affinity rises to triple his rank, thanks to the large number of subordinates he gained by helping Doso. Deeply impressed, the emperor asks Noah to continue using his talents for the benefit of the empire and accepts his decisions. And thus, the first episode comes to an end. Soon after, we are informed that the capital of males is the city that concentrates the political power of the country, in addition to being the main cultural and economic hub. As time passes, this understanding spreads among everyone, making it be seen as the most magnificent city in that entire world. The scene then shifts to our protagonist, who has just arrived at the place and is clearly impressed by what he sees. He comments that the eunuchs had mentioned the existence of a singer performing nearby. Curious, he decides to check it out personally, and one of his attendants chooses to accompany him to ensure his safety. Noah understands that the girl wishes to repay everything he did for the city, and because of that he ends up demanding more from her, since she has always carried out her work with great dedication. People comment that the boy has matured a lot, and for him, human qualities can always be developed even further, never being something excessive. As he approaches the place where the girl sings, Noah is surprised by the beauty of the voice that echoes. As he observes her closely, he remembers that her name is Alachi. The technique she uses is still simple, typical of beginners, but it is clear that she takes the profession of singer very seriously. Noah can feel that every note is sung with sincerity and genuine emotion. Suddenly, a man starts shouting at her, questioning why she insists on singing those nonsensical songs. Shortly after, he appears even more irritated and claims that, with that kind of income, she would never be able to pay the debt left by her father. Even as she explains that singing is the only thing she knows how to do, the man grabs her by the collar. At that moment, Noah intervenes and asks him not to do anything cruel to her in front of everyone. When least expected, the man hears the voice of a boy speaking up. The singer tries to ask him not to get involved, but Noah already stands up and walks toward the stage. The man mocks him and tells Noah to go cry in his mother's arms. In response, Noah reminds him that, according to the country's law, a child is not obligated to assume debts inherited from their parents. Forcing this debt onto the girl and pressuring her to sell her own body is considered a serious crime in the capital. The man then grabs Noah by the collar, but the boy reacts immediately, delivering several blows against him and his accomplices. After knocking them down, Noah asks if he still wants to continue. Before leaving, the man threatens that he will take revenge. Noah replies that, if he comes back, he should look for him directly. Upon seeing the card left by the boy, the man realizes that he is a prince. Noah then turns to Alachi, praises her ability as a singer, and asks how much she needs to cover her expenses. The girl explains that she needs to buy her mother's medicine, and Noah promptly offers a very high salary. He decides to pay that amount regularly, asking only that she sing without worries. In addition, he promises to increase the payment even more as she improves. Finally, he asks her to keep singing, because he wants to hear more. The scene shifts to Noah already at his residence. As he approaches the gate, he notices a group of men kneeling and asks who they are. The girl explains that they are the same men from before, who came to apologize to the singer. Noah orders that they all be sent away and asks that the message be direct and firm, making it clear that they cannot speak to an imperial prince whenever they please. At that moment, his brother Henry appears and says that Noah cannot deal with people like that so casually, because it diminishes the prestige of the imperial house and the princes. Noah agrees that this is one of the reasons, but states that there is another. He then calls his brother to talk inside the house. Seated, Noah explains that those men were extorting the singer. Because of that, he decided to hire her and offer a fixed salary, ensuring that they would not bother her again. Henry asks if her singing was really that extraordinary. Noah only asks that they do not try to take her away from him. Henry is surprised to realize that his younger brother has such an advanced mindset. Frankie and Gary, who are closer in age to Noah, do not even come close to that level. They are still immature and, even when taught, cannot learn proper etiquette. Noah believes they will understand everything when they get older. He also explains that, although they are brothers, each one has a different mother. Henry and Gary, for sharing the same mother, must have a different bond. Henry then shows interest in the magic sword, since it seems that Noah truly managed to master it completely. Noah responds that this is due to the fact that the sword has a will of its own. Even so, Henry thinks it is far too large for the boy. Noah disagrees and decides to prove it. When he shows the sword, Henry is shocked and asks where it was hidden. Noah answers that it was inside his sleeve. Henry is completely astonished, as he never imagined that would be possible. Noah explains that it was the sword itself that taught him. Henry considers that unbelievable. A national treasure that remained isolated for 200 years and has no similar records in the past. Simple, yet impressive. The scene then shifts to outside the mansion, where the men show resentment toward Noah's attitude and decide that they will kill him when they get the chance. Shortly after, Noah activates his eye and makes everyone kneel. One of them begs him to lower his head. Henry asks what Noah did this time. The boy replies that he merely released a small portion of the sword's power to force them to kneel. Henry is impressed and realizes that Noah has truly mastered the sword. The scene shifts once more to Noah in the city, now invited to a dinner, which he believes will be enjoyable. As he enters, everyone begins to applaud him, impressed both by his appearance and by his manners. One of the men notices the sword and asks what it is. Noah answers that it is called Leviathan, a sword that he inherited. Everyone is shocked to learn that someone so young managed to master it. One man says that it must be nothing more than a fake sword. At that moment, the sword becomes irritated and releases a smoke that causes several people to faint. Noah realizes that it gets angry easily. The man begins to applaud, saying that this is exactly what he expects from a prince. Everyone feels, at that moment, a strong sensation of death. This is the true power of the national treasure. The man is impressed that Noah managed to control something so frightening and congratulates him. Soon after, several people also begin to praise him for his extraordinary power. The man asks what Noah did to the one who insulted him. Noah replies that he can ignore him because he makes no difference at all. The scene shifts to the boy being greeted by several people. Suddenly, a man approaches to speak with Noah. He notices that the girl beside him is an adopted daughter. This becomes clear by the contrast between the man's elegant clothes and the girl's simple garments. Noah is certain that she was a former slave. He notices her gaze change slightly, as if she were being evaluated, a look typical of someone who has been enslaved before. The man kneels and admits that Noah is right. He explains that he bought the girl as a slave, but that she learned everything very quickly, so he decided to adopt her and teach her properly. Noah likes this kind of attitude and says that, next time, he will invite both of them to visit his mansion. He realizes that the man knows when to stop. The old man comments that the man is intelligent, because if he continued talking, he could end up provoking unnecessary jealousy. Noah explains that this was also another reason why he realized that the girl had been a slave. At the moment Noah touches his sword, it reacts defensively, as if it sensed danger. At the same time, the girl positions herself to protect him instinctively. The next day, Noah walks calmly through the city when he ends up encountering his brother Oscar. The boy asks what he is doing there alone. Noah replies that he was just taking a walk to relax a bit. Oscar then warns him to be careful walking without a carriage. Upon realizing that Noah is free, he asks if his brother would not like to go out a bit, since he apparently had no commitments. In an excited tone, he suggests that they look for some treasure around the city. As they walk, Noah remembers having already heard about that specific street. It is a place known for gathering antiques from various parts of the empire. Oscar explains that, despite that, there are many forgeries circulating there. Finding a genuine item among so many copies has ended up becoming a kind of pastime among the nobles. After walking for quite some time, Oscar comments that it does not seem like a good day for shopping and decides to leave. Even so, Noah becomes interested in a book displayed at one of the stalls and decides to buy it. Observing it more closely, he realizes that he has found a grimoire belonging to the legendary great mage Andrea. Noah is certain that the book is authentic. Depending on the content, it certainly would not be worth less than 1,000 yen. Although he does not understand everything immediately, Noah feels that, upon touching that book, his wind magic increases considerably. Soon after, he draws his sword, because he knows that only items with a will of their own are capable of amplifying abilities in that way. This indicates that there is something sealed inside. Suddenly, a creature emerges from the book, leaving Oscar shocked. He begins to wonder if that object is not a forbidden book that imprisons human souls. Oscar shouts for Noah to run away immediately. That presence is the vengeful spirit of a great mage specialized in wind magic. With a single precise strike, Noah makes the creature disappear completely. After that, Oscar asks if everything is all right and if anyone was hurt. Noah calmly replies that there is nothing to worry about because he directed the attack upward precisely so as not to hit anyone. Oscar is impressed by his brother's quick thinking and wonders how he managed to become so strong in such a short time. At that moment, a man appears before the two, claiming to be the owner of an antique shop. He introduces himself as Alan, saying that he closely followed the boys' great achievements and that, because of that, he would like to show them something special. He then reveals a ring enveloped by a dark aura. He comments that he has already shown that item to many different people, but never received any relevant reaction. Noah questions whether it is not just a worthless object. The man explains that he has also tried to get rid of the ring several times, believing it to be useless. Yet, somehow, it always ended up returning to his hands. This detail awakens even more interest in him, who considers the fact quite curious. Oscar also gets excited by the idea and suggests that Noah try on the ring. As soon as the boy puts it on, he realizes that the ring speaks, revealing itself to be SSS rank. Shortly after, the item begins to transform into a complete suit of armor, leaving everyone around impressed. Upon opening his status window, Noah notices that there was no direct increase in attributes. It seemed to be an entity different from both the previous grimoire and Leviathan. Even so, the ring possessed several magics available for use. Noah comments that he will send the reward to the man later, but Oscar interrupts, saying that he wants to pay for it, as he considers the ring a gift for the boy. After the magic sword and now the magic armor, Oscar realizes that there is something truly out of the ordinary about Noah. As they get down from the carriage, the boy decides to act. Suddenly, the same man appears trying to attack him, but Noah blocks the blow with ease, while several soldiers appear around. Oscar asks how he managed to create that shield. Noah explains that it was thanks to the ring, because he connected Leviathan to it, and together they ended up creating that defense. The boy realizes that the ring reacted automatically to hostility, functioning as a protection system. Oscar finds that incredible and becomes even more impressed with his younger brother. Since his ability to do things like that seems something out of this world, the scene changes, showing Noah watching the girl sing again. As he looks around, he notices several people starting to fight because of her. Without hesitation, Noah creates a shield to prevent that useless commotion and, right after, uses a shock strike to restrain the two involved. He then asks the man responsible for the place why so many fights happen there. The man explains that this type of people ends up sustaining the bar. Faced with that, Noah decides to buy the entire establishment, leaving the man extremely grateful. The girl asks if it is really worth investing so much money because of her and says that she would like to repay him in some way. Noah replies that he only wants her to continue singing with the voice she has. She asks if he truly values her as a singer, and the boy confirms, saying that he wants the emperor to hear her sing someday. Until that moment arrives, he would like her to continue performing. Moved, the girl begins to cry, but soon resumes singing. Noah is impressed by her voice, which truly sounds beautiful. He is certain that he did not make a mistake in his choice and believes that the girl is, without a doubt, a true treasure. The scene shifts to the protagonist, who is standing there while his maids finish dressing him. They inform him that he will soon receive a visit from the Governor General of Hajjov, dead Murray. The boy asks them to let him enter right away, stating that he is already prepared. Next, it is explained that the imperial family has a tradition of granting fiefs to princes, making them responsible for learning about administrative and governmental matters. For this reason, the people who live in these territories usually admire the imperial prince as a true master, the absolute lord of those lands. For that man, who was born in Almeria and now serves in Hajjov, it was no different. Shortly after, the man formally introduces himself as the Governor General of Hajjov. He shows great honor at finally meeting the boy. The young prince merely asks him not to be so stiff and formal. Upon hearing this, the man feels more at ease. He then explains that, about a year and a half earlier, he had the honor of greeting the boy when he was officially appointed Governor General by the Emperor. The boy asks how the work in the lands of Hajjov is progressing. He recalls that he was given the mission of overseeing flood control in that region by imperial order. He also knows that the situation is not good. Hajjov is a fertile area, known for its grain production, located along the bend of a great river. However, it frequently suffers from major floods. The emperor wished to stabilize these conditions and, for that reason, appointed Murray, who came from Almeria, land of the Water Clan, as Governor General. The boy shows interest in understanding what is really happening. The man explains that they have not yet received the necessary budgets, and that they cannot spend resources they do not have. The boy becomes confused, as he states that the budget was sent correctly. The man agrees, but says that the Ministry of Finance raised some objections. Noah immediately grasps the situation and asks the man to accompany him without delay. The scene then shifts to a meeting with a representative of the Ministry of Finance, whom Noah questions about why he is there. Noah explains that he learned from Murray that there is a certain hesitation in releasing the budget. The man responds that it is not quite like that and that there is a valid justification. Noah interrupts him, saying that if he intends to claim that it is something children cannot understand, it would be better for him to remain silent. The man swallows hard and clarifies that this is not the case. He then explains that Hajjov suffered severe flooding in the previous year. The emperor was deeply saddened by the situation and granted a full tax exemption for an entire year. In other words, there was significant savings on the part of the region. The Ministry of Finance considers it acceptable to use that amount. The man asks whether Noah understands the explanation. Noah becomes irritated and asks whether he is mocking him. Noah states that there was a flood and that, out of compassion, the emperor exempted everyone from paying taxes, which means that there were no taxes to be collected. It was an act of imperial kindness. However, that is exactly the problem. The man spoke as if that were something logical and acceptable. Noah, visibly angry, asks again if he is joking with him. The man answers that he is not. Noah then demands to know the truth. The man admits that, in reality, he cannot release the budget. He tries to explain something, chokes on his words, and then reveals that the High Council is aware of the plans to build a new summer resort for the emperor. As the emperor has already reached a certain age, instead of remaining in the capital, where the heat is intense every year, he wishes to spend the summer in a cooler place. Although it would be a place of rest, it would still be an imperial facility. In practice, it would be an isolated palace. In short, it would be necessary to build practically a new city to serve as a summer residence, which would require an enormous amount of resources. The man realizes that involving the emperor in this matter would be extremely delicate. The national treasury is overburdened in order to meet imperial needs. Noah loses his patience, tells the man to shut up, and states that this is a serious lack of respect, calling him a scoundrel. Flood control is vital for a region that suffers from inundations, yet the resources are being withheld for the construction of a vacation home. Noah asks whether he intends to make his father, the emperor, look like a fool. The man immediately kneels and claims that he never had such an intention. Noah simply demands that the money be released as soon as possible, or else he will appeal directly to the emperor. Frightened, the man begs him not to do that and promises to release Hajjov's budget immediately. Murray is impressed by how easily the boy managed to force the Ministry of Finance to yield. He He tells Noah that he is deeply impressed. The intensity of the negotiation was remarkable. The way Noah communicated was direct and effective, clearly exposing the contradictions and flaws on the other side. The man admits that he feels ashamed of his own recklessness for having placed His Highness in that situation. Noah had understood from the very beginning that the man approached him precisely to force a definitive resolution. Murray hurriedly leaves to begin flood control as soon as possible. Soon after, a messenger appears informing Noah that he must go to the castle immediately, as the Emperor wishes to see him. The Emperor congratulates him on his actions and comments on the Hajjov case. He also mentions that he heard Noah crushed Maybrick. Noah is surprised and asks how he learned about it so quickly. The Emperor explains that information is a powerful weapon, and that he must always strive to improve in that regard. Noah says that he merely did what seemed natural to him. The Emperor responds that what is natural for some is extremely difficult for others. Many people have a silver tongue and use it only to flatter. Few manage to do the obvious in the correct way. Even at only 6 years old, Noah manages to deeply impress his father. The Emperor asks him to stand up and asks whether the weapon he carries is Leviathan. The man present realizes that Noah chose the most powerful sword. He knows that his own mansion is part of the information network. And just thinking that Noah managed to completely master that sword already makes him uneasy. Considering Leviathan's terrible history, this is something extraordinary at the very least. Noah recalls that, on the day of the celebration, if he had not restrained the sword, it would have killed everyone who was present. He knows that this weapon carries a dark past. For that reason, he decided that he needed to learn how to wield it as soon as possible. A fencing instructor is summoned to assist him. Damien Noble introduces himself. He is considered the finest swordsman in the kingdom, and everyone says that his technique seems otherworldly. The Emperor asks Noah to devote himself to training under him. Damien explains that, although the boy is young and inexperienced, there is no cause for concern, since he will be evaluating potential rather than technique. The Emperor states that he places complete trust in Damien, which leaves Noah impressed. The swordsman asks Noah to attack immediately. As he advances, Noah begins to see images of the sword's former wielders. With precise and fluid movements, he manages to disarm Damien. The man kneels and admits that there is nothing he can teach Noah. The boy's strength and agility are appropriate for his age, but his technique is refined. Noah's sword skills are already at the level of a master. It would be arrogance to try to instruct him. He was completely defeated. The Emperor is deeply impressed and decides to entrust Noah with the role of head of the knight selection for that year. Noah is pleased with the decision and promises to give it his all. It is explained that the knight selection is one of the greatest annual events in the entire empire. The empire has always been known as a nation of warriors, a place that deeply values strength and martial skill. Since ancient times, it was said that the path of the martial arts was the only true way to achieve success through one's own merit. During the knight selection, warriors who have won preliminary battles in various regions of the country gather in the capital to face combats that may end in death. The victor receives the title of knight and, at that very moment, becomes part of the upper class of society. The first responsibility of a newly appointed knight is to become an official subordinate of the selection. If the boy manages to choose a good knight to serve him, this could make him even more powerful in the future. Before proceeding, the Emperor decides to ask an important question. In what manner does he intend to conduct the knight selection? The boy explains that he plans to abolish the regional preliminary rounds and concentrate the entire selection directly in the imperial capital. He wants all candidates to fight before his own eyes. The Emperor acknowledges that, even being who he is, he cannot keep track of all the qualifying stages scattered throughout the empire. It would be regrettable to lose a great talent for some unjust or circumstantial reason. He makes it clear that he does not want to let any promising warrior slip away and asks the boy to do his best in this task. The scene shifts to the protagonist speaking with a girl, asking whether there is anyone from her village participating in the selection. She replies that there is. That village is the only point of entry for common people. Every year, only one challenger manages to go there. Noah understands the situation. This year, he truly intends to eliminate the regional qualifying rounds. There will be no limit to the number of participants. anyone will be able to present themselves. The girl replies that this sounds good, but soon asks to drop the subject. Noah insists and asks her to say what she is really thinking. The girl then explains that the reason only one person from the village participates is related to the costs of travel and lodging. The capital is extremely expensive. With donations from all the residents, they manage to gather enough money to send only a single representative. That person carries the expectations of the entire village, and everyone takes it very seriously. Upon hearing this, Noah decides that he will eliminate this obstacle as well. He wants as many options as possible. It would be terrible to lose a talent because of money. He states that he will cover all travel and lodging expenses. The girl understands that the villagers will be very happy, but warns that this will cost an enormous sum. Noah explains that there is no need to start everything from scratch. He then calls his butler and orders him to find out how many houses are available in the capital and purchase all of them. In addition, he asks him to immediately contact the merchant he knows. When meeting again with the same people who were present at the party, the man asks Noah about the selection of servants for the palace. Noah asks whether he wishes to send someone, and the man replies that he does. Noah explains that if there is someone inside the palace under the merchant's control, it will be possible to obtain valuable information. If the emperor were to order someone to spend the night with him and that person became one of his wives, the benefits would be immense. The man responds that this is a different matter from the current request and reminds him that his gifts have already been delivered to the mansion. Noah clarifies that if it is someone who merely pleases him, he will make the recommendation. But if it is someone he truly likes, the man will have to choose a girl who perfectly matches his expectations. The merchant makes one final request. He would like to include the crest of the 13th Prince on his shop's signboard. Noah asks whether he intends to subordinate himself to him. He then makes it clear that he does not tolerate betrayal under any circumstances. Upon returning home, Noah realizes that having Byron under his command will further increase his prestige. If he continues at this pace, his power will grow even more. Shortly afterward, he notices that his status related to water has decreased and decides that he needs to find His Highness to check what is happening in Almeria. When he goes to speak with the emperor, Noah asks how he found out about the problems in Almeria. Suddenly, a man appears, informing them that there was a rebellion in Almeria and congratulating the boy. He then asks what scale Noah believes this revolt has. If something that seemed to be SS became merely S, at first glance it may appear that it was cut in half. However, in reality, this represents only one level lower in the entire hierarchy. In other words, he believes it to be a second-tier conflict, involving few people. The father asks whether Noah wishes to be the commander of the war. The boy replies that he does not, as he considers himself inexperienced on the battlefield and believes that Henry is better suited to lead. The two proceed together, and Henry asks if he is sure about this decision, since it would be an excellent opportunity to gain prestige. Noah responds that it is fine, as he is still very young. At that moment, Leviathan reacts, and the boy realizes that the sword is responding to him. As they exit the carriage, they are attacked. But Noah manages to defend himself thanks to his shields. He soon realizes that the enemies are water mages from Almeria. As they advance against him, Noah defeats them all with extreme ease. After the battle, he decides to keep them alive, as there is a possibility that they might attempt to take their own lives. Upon returning home, Noah calls the man once again and demands that this information not leak out in any way. If that happens, he makes it clear that he will consider the man as good as dead. Noah also orders him to purchase, as quickly as possible, feed for horses, as he believes that the enemies have acquired mounts from another nation. This will directly help his brother in the war. For that reason, he orders him to depart immediately to carry out the task. The scene shifts to Noah, who is calmly talking with his father. He explains to his son that the assassin from the previous night ended up talking. According to the account, the plan was to capture the boy and use him as a kind of bargaining chip. Noah realizes that this explanation seems a little too coherent. The confession was quick, perhaps even too easy, which raises the possibility that it is a lie. His father observes that his son is quite perceptive and asks him not to be so restless. since there are ways to confirm whether someone is telling the truth. Noah thinks to himself that he has no talent for torture and decides to accept the situation as it is. His father comments that if Noah had been captured, the Empire would have been forced to make extremely difficult decisions. He also shows surprise at the fact that the target was the feed. Noah is shocked to realize that his father already knows about this, since the order to buy all the horse feed had been given recently. Something similar had happened before, but never so quickly. His father explains that if it were just a common siege, anyone could have thought of that. Albert, for example, would have let the rebels starve to death as a warning to the others. However, Noah suspects an invasion of his people, and the siege directed only at the horses reinforces this idea, especially since it was financed with personal resources. His father bends down, looks at his son, and says that he is incredible, acknowledging that none of that was simple to accomplish. Knowing this, he decides that he needs to reward him. He allows Noah to add a sword to the family crest. Next, it is explained that the Empire is a nation of warriors, and the sword is its greatest symbol. Using it on a crest without imperial authorization is a serious offense that can even lead to death. On the other hand, when granted by the Emperor, it is one of the greatest honors that exist. His father then orders crews to issue the decree immediately. Noah feels embarrassed and gives thanks, saying that he is honored. The scene changes to Noah beside one of his men, who had been waiting for some time. He explains that the amount of processed grain for feed that can be transported is limited, and that it is also possible to discover the delivery route. Monopolizing the purchase makes this process much easier. He also comments about the rebel leader, Cartoon, describing him as someone extremely vengeful, willing to use any means to achieve his objectives. He acknowledges that this may not be a great cause for concern for Noah, but still advises him to be cautious. At that moment, a maid appears, warning that there is a gravely injured man at the main gate with an urgent report. The man introduces himself as the captain of a battalion of 10 people in the province of Adra in Almeria. He explains that a rebellion began there because of his superior. Disagreeing with the situation, he abandoned the group and came to expose the truth. He realizes that Noah already had knowledge of what happened. Even so, Noah thanks him for the information and orders that the man's injuries be treated immediately, as well as rewarding him with 1,000 coins. After the captain leaves, the subordinate questions Noah about the reason for paying so much for information that was no longer useful. Noah agrees that this is true, but points out that a captain came to warn him purely out of loyalty, and that deserves recognition. The scene changes to Noah in his room. When a pale young woman appears, she explains that she received 500 yen to poison the boy, under the excuse that it would be a medicine to make him sleep forever. Noah asks whether, if he did not die, they intended to take his body, and she confirms it. He realizes that it is the rebels again and understands that the threat is real. He asks why she brought this to him, and the girl replies that she would never betray him. He helped her family and her village with money and shelter, but she was threatened with death if she did not obey. Noah asks her to calm down and decides to reward her with 5,000 yen for her loyalty. Even though she is reluctant, he insists and tells her not to worry. Noah decides to ingest the drug and, if he faints, wants them to hand him over to the rebels. He orders her to flee and hide immediately, because they would try to silence her no matter what. The scene changes to Noah kidnapped by bandits. He realizes that he is completely tied up and then summons his sword. He considers it to have been an excellent decision to hide it, since it certainly would have been confiscated. As expected, the ring remained with him. With that, he quickly cuts everything that was restraining him. He thought he was in a room, but realizes that he is in the back of a carriage. Noah asks Leviathan to show him the memories, and the scene shifts to a castle full of bandits. They question where the maid is and decide to forget about it, choosing to take the boy before the guards appear. After seeing all the memories shown by Leviathan, Noah is impressed and fully understands the situation. Outside, the bandits argue about who failed to tie him properly, even suspecting outside help, but wonder what a child could possibly do alone. Before they realize it, one of them is eliminated without difficulty. Noah thinks that the entire trip was useless, as he expected more valuable information, but found only ordinary subordinates. Then, all of them attack at the same time, and Noah defeats them with ease. Suddenly, his maid appears accompanied by several guards. She apologizes, remembering that she was supposed to hide, but says that she was worried about him. Looking around, she realizes that Noah defeated everyone by himself. Noah asks who the captain is, and the man introduces himself. He decides to let the captain take care of the rest. While searching one of the bandits, a sword falls to the ground, and Noah orders that no one touch it. He asks everyone to step back immediately. He recognizes the weapon as the dagger mentioned earlier, feeling an intense magic emanating from it. Through Leviathan, he even perceives the curse contained within it. Carried by the resentment of the one who cursed it, Noah orders the source of that magic to be eliminated, and the energy fires off, mortally striking the one responsible for the war. The scene changes to Noah standing before his father once again. He kneels, and his father says that his son did an excellent job. Apparently, the leader of the rebel army was struck in the forehead by a strange jet of water that appeared out of nowhere the previous night. His father asks if Noah was responsible, and he confirms it. Noah realizes that, as always, his father obtains information quickly, using the resentment present in the dagger as a marker. He aimed Leviathan at the true owner of the weapon, and the attack worked. With the death of the leader, the rebels of Almeria lost their strength, and the revolt was quickly contained by the fourth imperial prince, Henry. The scene changes to a room where it is reported that almost all those involved in the rebellion were arrested. An officer asks His Majesty for instructions regarding the punishment. The emperor orders them to prepare cattle and horses, decreeing that the entire family of the rebels will be dismembered. Everyone is impressed by the severity of the punishment decreed by the king for those people. His father decides that all of them will be punished as soon as possible for having started a rebellion in his territory. At that moment, Noah asks permission to speak before everyone. He states that he would not like that to be done in that manner. Angered, the king orders his son to explain at once what he means. Noah then declares that the punishment must be in accordance with the law. According to imperial law, the leader of an act of treason is sentenced to death by decapitation. His relatives up to the 3rd degree must be hanged. The other involved parties may be decapitated, depending on their level of participation. He emphasizes that, although the term dismemberment is used as an expression, such a punishment does not exist in imperial law. The king replies that those people will end up tarnishing Noah's reputation. The boy counters, saying that if the king himself takes the initiative to break the law, this could generate chaos throughout the entire empire. He asks his father to carefully consider this consequence. After listening to him, the king admits that his son is right and thanks him for correcting him. Everyone is impressed by Noah's stance. The king then declares that they will not be satisfied with a lenient punishment. The sentence will be the maximum penalty permitted by law, without any possibility of mitigation. He asks if Noah still has something to say, and the boy replies that he does not. Next, the king orders the prime minister to begin carrying out the sentences. Everyone realizes that Noah has an extraordinary future ahead of him. His father approaches him and states that it was thanks to his son that they avoided a stain in the history of the empire. Acknowledging this, he decides to grant him a reward. He resolves to bestow a title upon Noah. Although any of his children could have reprimanded him, he wishes for the boy's wisdom to be recognized. Thus, he grants him the title of sage. The reaction is immediate. Everyone is shocked and moved. The king comments that he wishes Noah had been born a little earlier. The crowd begins to shout the boy's name. His father then reminds him that the night selection will take place soon and asks whether he has already decided what he will do. Noah says that he has an idea and prefers to explain it later. The two meet in private, and Noah demonstrates one of his powers to his father. He explains that he intends to make everyone attack him on the day of the selection, in order to evaluate how far each one can advance. His father agrees, as this will reduce his own burden and make the long selection process more efficient. Even so, he warns that there is a risk of someone truly strong appearing. Noah states that he is already aware of this and prepared to face any situation. Impressed by his son's courage, his father says that he may act however he wishes. The scene shifts to the castle, where the prime minister comments, worried, about the king's remark saying that he wished Noah had been born earlier. considering it a dangerous statement to make in public. The king disagrees and states that he sees no problem with it at all. Noah not only gave him correct advice, but also eliminated an enemy leader without even going to the battlefield, something unprecedented. Furthermore, as already expected, Noah's magic sword possesses a terrifying power. The king then calls Cruz and asks him to provide what they had agreed upon. The man replies that the seal of Leviathan should never be broken. But perhaps, being Noah, it might be possible. Thus ends another episode. After a long period of anticipation, the long-awaited night selection finally began. It was an event of enormous importance, held only once a year throughout the entire empire. The official name of this vast territory, which most people simply referred to as the Empire, was the Miles Empire. In the ancient language, the word Miles meant warriors, a name filled with tradition and pride. It was precisely through this selection that it was decided who was truly worthy of bearing that title and serving as an imperial knight. This test always attracted the attention of citizens, from nobles to common folk coming from distant villages. However, in that particular year, the interest was even greater than usual. The reason was simple yet striking. For the first time in history, an imperial prince had taken on the role of chief examiner of the selection. Something like that had never happened before. Because of this, crowds gathered at the venue from the early hours of the day, not only to watch the duels, but mainly to see the young prince with their own eyes. During the battles, the candidates advanced toward Noah with determination, trying to display their skills to the fullest. Even so, every attack was blocked with extreme ease, as if they were nothing more than predictable and weightless movements. The narrative then shifts to the king, who watched each fight closely from his position above. He grew increasingly impressed as he realized that, up to that point, his son had not been struck by a single blow. Many commented that this selection would be more exciting than the previous ones, but the king did not allow himself to be carried away by the spectacle. For him, what truly mattered were the results. Knowing that the knight selection was a direct method of choosing capable individuals, he wondered what kind of people Noah intended to approve, feeling a growing curiosity about his son's criteria. The scene then returns to Noah, who was visibly frustrated. Nearly 200 people had already passed before him, one after another, and none of them seemed to truly stand out in his eyes. It was as if they all possessed only superficial strength. Suddenly, however, a girl steps onto the dueling field and, defying all expectations, manages to pierce Noah's guard and wound him. Shock instantly spreads among the spectators. Many become outraged, believing that this would be the end for her for having injured an imperial prince. However, to everyone's surprise, Noah orders that she be released immediately and calmly asks her name. She introduces herself as Shirley Grants, and to the astonishment of all, Noah approves her without hesitation. No one can understand why he accepted someone who had wounded him. Even so, many begin to realize that the prince has a kind heart and a different way of thinking. The scene shows Noah speaking directly with Shirley, asking whether the armor she wears belongs to her. She answers yes and explains that the armor has been passed down through generations in her family, carrying not only material value, but also deep sentimental meaning. Upon realizing that she has been approved, Shirley becomes confused, believing she has committed a serious mistake. She cannot understand why she was accepted even after injuring the prince. Noah then asks whether injuring him by accident should really be considered such a serious crime, and explains that the fault was his, not hers. Next, Noah asks Shirley to stand up and attack him again. Although she finds this strange, she obeys, as it is a direct order. When she attacks, Noah defends himself without any difficulty and explains that, if he had wanted to, he could have blocked the first strike in the same way. He makes it clear that she did not wound him by chance. Noah then explains that the essence of a knight is to follow orders and act with seriousness. He wanted to test her to verify her loyalty, because he does not want someone who acts only according to their own mood. Shirley attacked with the same determination both times, and that was enough to convince him. Shirley kneels once more and swears loyalty to Noah. Observing closely, he notices that her abilities had improved, even within such a short span of time. Soon after, a doctor appears to treat Noah's wound and comments that he was very lucky, since the blow did not hit any bones or tendons. Shirley is impressed by how the prince is being treated, as there are no doctors in her village. When Noah asks how they deal with illnesses, she explains that the village elder prays for everyone and drives away sickness. The doctor remarks that this is common in poor villages. Noah then asks whether the easiest way to become a doctor is by becoming an apprentice, and the man confirms without hesitation. In response, Noah gives his first official order to Shirley. He wants her to bring the smartest people from her village to the capital. He asks the doctor to take some of these children in as apprentices, and the man readily agrees. Noah states that he will cover all the costs, because he wants these children to become doctors and, in the future, take care of their own village. Shirley thanks him deeply, but Noah interrupts her, saying that a knight should not bow like that, and that she still needs to learn proper etiquette. The scene shifts to Shirley waking up in her new home. Completely amazed by the servants' quarters assigned to her, she barely managed to sleep that night, overwhelmed by anxiety and surprise. As she walks through the castle corridors, she hears the maids commenting about who might become Noah's future wife. Shirley recalls that he is only 6 years old, but they explain that imperial princes usually marry before the age of 15. One of them remarks that Noah is extremely popular among girls, to the point that several cafes are opening near the castle just to try to catch a glimpse of him from afar. Everyone expresses surprise at how beloved the prince is by the people. The narrative returns to Noah in his office, where a subordinate presents the final results of that year's selection. Thanks to the method used by Noah, the new recruits are considered to be of extremely high quality. The Knight Order sends messages of gratitude, acknowledging the efficiency of the process. Noah asks the man to convey his thanks for their cooperation. As the subordinate takes his leave, he kneels, reminding him that they are colleagues. The man explains that he was sent to accompany Shirley and give her advice, stating that there is nothing wrong with following Noah and urging her to work hard. The scene shifts once again, showing Noah watching his friend sing in the same bar as before. His subordinates praise the success of the selection, commenting on how everything went flawlessly. Noah explains that the event exists to value everyone's efforts and asks them to take the opportunity to relax and enjoy themselves. Before that, however, he warns that everyone present there are merchants connected to the 13th Imperial Prince. Shortly afterward, Noah receives a completely blank letter and immediately understands its meaning. Someone has fled. He realizes that the remnants of the Umare rebellion are moving in a troubling way. The maids ask whether they still have not given up, and Noah explains that the person who sent the information is infiltrated, investigating the situation up close. He clearly remembers who brought him the warning. The maids comment that this person seemed very much in love with him and that the master already knew about the rebellion but accepted the information anyway. Noah states that this is extremely dangerous because acting as an intermediary without proper training can lead to death if discovered. He also remembers that his brother Henry should still be in that location and orders that a messenger be sent to stop him. Shortly afterward, Noah learns that the informant was tortured and that the punishment was severe for having kept the secret. Henry's troops attempted a rescue, but the man remains unconscious. Noah feels that this is his responsibility, and that he could have prevented everything if he had realized the situation earlier. He then recalls the Emperor's teaching that information is a weapon. In response, Noah orders immediate contact with Almeria and demands that no resources be spared. He wants everything necessary to be used to save that man, as he does not consider it acceptable to sacrifice someone so loyal over a single piece of information. Upon arriving in the city, Shirley is completely amazed by everything around her. The wide, bustling streets, the well-maintained buildings, and the shop windows filled with unfamiliar objects spark an almost childlike curiosity in her. Many of those things she had never seen in her entire life back in the village, and every detail seemed to reflect the city's prosperity. As they walk, she asks Noah whether he intends to buy something specific. He calmly replies that he wants to purchase a gift for his brother, Henry, as a way of thanking him for suppressing the rebellion and for his involvement in the matter of the letter. When they enter the same merchant's shop as before, Noah carefully observes the interior. His gaze is soon drawn to a statue carefully displayed, crafted with great detail and clearly valuable. He shows immediate interest in the piece and seems determined to buy it. However, before he can conclude the purchase, his brother suddenly appears in the shop and, upon noticing the statue, casually comments that he already owns one very similar in his collection. Upon hearing this, Noah makes a completely unexpected decision. Without any warning, he approaches the statue and breaks it in front of everyone. The dry sound of the piece shattering echoes through the shop, and the merchant is left completely frozen, unable to believe what he has just witnessed. His expression shows pure shock, as if time itself had stopped at that moment. A few seconds later, Noah's brother understands the true reason behind that abrupt action. By destroying the statue, the value of the similar piece he already owned would increase considerably, making it even rarer and more coveted. The merchant, still stunned, is unable to react or protest. As they leave the shop, Shirley watches everything in silence, taking in every detail of what happened. She is deeply impressed by Noah's cold intelligence and strategic vision, realizing that his decisions go far beyond what they seem at first glance. As they walk through the city, Shirley reflects on everything she has witnessed and reaches a clear conclusion in her heart. She wants to remain by Noah's side for the rest of her life. Having a fief governed by someone with such ability would be truly extraordinary. She firmly believes that, once Noah fully reaches adulthood, he will become an even more impressive, respected, and influential figure, someone capable of changing the fate of many. Soon after, the years pass quickly, almost imperceptibly. 6 years go by without them realizing it, bringing profound changes, filled with responsibilities, important decisions, and challenges that will definitively shape his future. The scene shifts to Noah, who observes his servant for a few moments before asking whether something is bothering her. She hesitates briefly, and then explains that the line of people bringing gifts for the boy is simply enormous. Even after 3 consecutive days, the flow has still not ended, and new carriages continue to arrive without pause. Noah listens attentively and comments, with complete calm, that this is not a problem at all, since in the previous year, the situation lasted for almost an entire week. Jiggy is quite surprised to hear this, imagining how exhausting it must have been to deal with so many visitors for such a long time. Noah then clarifies that the work does not end with simply receiving the gifts. It is still necessary to carefully register who sent each item, what gift was delivered, and where it came from, in order to avoid any diplomatic issues in the future. He adds that Evelyn handles this bureaucratic part very well, being extremely organized, and therefore sees no reason for concern. Shortly after, we are informed that the imperial prince known as Sage Noah, now 12 years old, has been officially recognized for having perfectly mastered the magical sword Leviathan. This recognition does not come merely from rumors or praise, but from formal evaluations conducted by the Empire itself, by direct order of the Emperor. Noah was sent to the Military Human Resources Administration to participate in a special review. The Minister of War responsible for the sector is Henry. Upon entering the room, Noah greets his brother and asks whether he needs anything specific. Henry replies that he would like to hear the boy's opinion before making any definitive decision. He explains that the Emperor has issued an order for Rice to lead an army with the objective of suppressing a rebellion in the southern border region. If the group of barbarians were treated with leniency, they would become even more arrogant and daring. For that reason, it was decided to send the regular army, not only to win, but to clearly demonstrate the difference in power between the Empire and its enemies. Noah understands the situation almost immediately. As he observes the man before him, he realizes that Rice is strong, disciplined, and possesses a natural talent for leading troops. Among the knights serving under Henry's command, he stands out in an obvious way. Noah then asks Rice to answer a simple question and inquires about the exact number of soldiers involved in the operation. Rice becomes visibly embarrassed. He hesitates, averting his gaze, unable to answer right away. Henry senses the tension in the air and asks what exactly Noah is trying to find out. Rice himself begins to understand the situation and, overcome with guilt, kneels on the ground asking for forgiveness. Noah quickly tries to calm his brother, saying that this is not something as serious as it may seem at first glance. He then explains that, based on the official number of soldiers registered in the Imperial Army, the Ministry of Finance releases a corresponding budget. However, people who are not actually soldiers, such as occasional workers, porters, and temporary collaborators, end up being included in these records. This causes part of the money to be diverted almost automatically. Rice apologizes once again, taking responsibility. Noah asks Henry to wait a moment and reassures Rice, telling him that he does not need to be afraid. Increasing the declared number of soldiers is a general's right, and he does not intend to punish him for it. In many cases, even symbolic numbers are used as a tool of intimidation. Henry acknowledges that this is true, because even if the real number is smaller, claiming that there is an army of 100,000 men can have an enormous psychological impact on the enemy. Noah, however, explains that this time the situation is different. The emperor's order demands an overwhelming victory, with no margin for failure. For that reason, he wanted to know how many soldiers are actually being concealed. He asks Henry to be honest. Rice replies that it is about 2,000 people. Without showing surprise, Noah requests that more soldiers be sent to the front line. He asks for paper and pen, writes a set of instructions firmly, and orders that the document be delivered immediately to the Ministry of Finance. He requests that a budget equivalent to 2,000 additional people be released and makes it clear that he will accept no defeat. As he leaves the mansion, Henry reflects silently that his brother does not yet truly know what war is. Despite his impressive maturity, Noah is still only 12 years old and remains at level 1. According to the laws of the imperial family, children of the imperial house often meet early deaths. Officially, these deaths are attributed to epidemics or accidents, but in reality, many are caused by power struggles, betrayals, and poisonings. Even so, he is the life of a precious heir. Until an imperial prince grows up, he cannot go to war without the direct authorization of the emperor. Henry recalls that Noah is already old enough, and that participating in a military campaign would make him more respected before assuming a fief. Noah has always shown willingness, requiring only his father's permission. Henry believes that this would not be difficult to obtain, especially considering that the boy wields Leviathan. Suddenly, a group of children appears running, asking for help after fleeing from some men. Noah approaches and asks what is going on. The men respond with disdain, telling a brat like him not to meddle in their affairs. Noah, with a firm voice, replies that it is forbidden to carry out any activity without a government-registered company and that the illegal trade of people is a serious crime. The men advance toward him, but with a series of precise movements, almost like a dance with swords, Noah defeats them with extreme ease, leaving all of them unconscious in just a few moments. After that, Noah asks the children if they were slaves from the underworld. One of the girls, crying, explains that they were told all of them would be worth a lot of money. Shortly afterward, a smiling man appears, saying that the situation is a great opportunity. He introduces himself to Noah and claims that he works trading children like them. When he is about to say his name, he decides not to, alleging that he works for the first imperial prince, Gilbert. Internally, Noah does not fully understand what is happening. He tells the man to be quiet, especially because Henry is standing beside him, which sounds like a direct threat. The man asks Noah not to do anything. Noah then asks Henry if he knows that man, and Henry replies that he does not. Without hesitation, Noah attacks and makes the man faint in front of everyone. He explains to the people who witnessed the scene that the man is a scoundrel who uses his brother's name to commit crimes. Noah orders the guards to take the men away, stating that they are imposters using the prince's name for illegal activities. He also asks that the children be taken to his mansion, as he intends to listen to them calmly later. Henry is impressed by the way Noah handled everything without causing a major scandal. Noah understands that he cannot simply discard them if they truly are subordinates of Gilbert. Ignoring the situation would make it seem as though he allowed underworld slave trafficking. Treating them as frauds was the best solution, leaving the problem for Gilbert himself to resolve. As night falls, Noah receives a message. Henry asks what happened, and Noah explains that a messenger from the first prince made contact. Gilbert thanked him for the help, stating that the criminals were using his name improperly. He had planned to turn them in the next day, but the men became careless and ended up taking their own lives. Noah asks Henry whether the slave trafficking was truly ordered by Gilbert. Henry replies that it was, saying that he has always been involved in shady businesses, land purchases, and obsessions of that kind. Noah concludes that there is not much that can be done. Gilbert, despite being the first prince, is the son of a concubine and cannot ascend to the throne. Perhaps because he cannot inherit the empire, he sought other ways to satisfy his desires, such as business dealings, properties, and acts that would never be officially approved. The scene shifts to Noah calmly talking with the rescued children. He explains that everything has already been resolved and that, from that moment on, they are all free and out of danger. Next, Noah asks if any of them have a place to go or someone they can trust. The children answer that they do not, explaining that many were sold by their own families in exchange for objects or money, while others do not even know where they came from. Faced with this, Noah concludes that even if he returned them, there would be a risk of them being sold again in the future. Thinking about this, he decides to take them in temporarily. Noah orders the butler to prepare a suitable place for them to stay, ensuring food, shelter, and security. In addition, he asks that opportunities for honest work be offered and that those who wish to study be selected, so they can have a different future. One of the girls, still distrustful, asks if he intends to buy them. Noah answers directly that he does not. If any of them wish to leave, they are free to do so. However, while they remain under his protection, he will help them, as long as they do not betray him or abuse his trust. Next, Noah calls one of his trusted maids and gives her an unexpected mission: to officially assume the role of governing authority over a small territory in Almeria. From that moment on, she is recognized as an officer of the empire. It is explained that a governing authority occupies a position of extreme importance, being seen by the people as a local governor, responsible for the administration, security, and development of the region. This is a massive promotion for someone who previously served only as a maid. The narrator explains that the fief granted by the empire to the imperial prince is far too vast to be managed by a single person. For this reason, representatives are sent to each region, acting directly in the prince's name and ensuring that his orders are carried out. Noah reveals that he has always observed the girl carefully, and that, among all the maids in the mansion, she is the most intelligent and dedicated. To him, keeping her merely handling guests and domestic tasks would be an enormous waste of talent. Even after receiving this great responsibility, the girl expresses her desire to continue serving Noah directly. He then explains that precisely because he recognizes her intelligence and capability, he wants her to show that talent to the world, working on something that truly makes a difference, both for the empire and for himself. His words deeply move the girl, who accepts the mission with pride, determined to work in another country as Noah's direct representative. The scene changes again, showing Noah standing before his father and several important figures of the kingdom gathered in a grand hall. The king decides to test his own son and makes a bet with the prime minister, questioning whether Noah truly knows all the laws of the empire. A series of complex questions is asked, and Noah answers each one with extreme ease, demonstrating not only memory, but also a deep understanding of the rules and their impact on governance. Impressed in front of everyone, the king makes a bold decision and appoints Noah as the Minister of Justice of the empire. The appointment leaves everyone present completely shocked, as it is a position of enormous responsibility, especially for someone so young. After that, the scene returns to the boy at his usual bar. Noah reflects on everything that has happened, feeling that merely answering questions would not be sufficient reason for such an important appointment. He believes there is something greater behind the king's decisions, something he does not yet fully understand. Meanwhile, the people around him lavish praise on the girl recognized as the best singer in the kingdom, a title that was also the result of a previous bet made by Noah. The narrative then cuts to Gilbert, who appears extremely irritated by all the recent events, clearly dissatisfied with his brother's rising influence and status. Shortly afterward, another of the brothers is shown smiling enigmatically, while the king displays great irritation and orders the prime minister to immediately do what must be done. Thus, the episode comes to an end,